You argue that the economic system we have, capitalism, is broken and in crisis. Why?
Several things. One is extreme wealth concentration. Wealth concentration was always there, but gradually it's becoming speedier and speedier. Today it comes in a very speedy way. It's all the wealth of the world is in the hands of few people. Last year we were told that 8 people in the whole world own more wealth than the bottom 50% of the entire population, which is about 4 billion people. So 4 billion people's wealth equals to 8 people's wealth. And next year it will be worse. It will be less than 8 people owning more than 50% of the wealth of the world. So if you continue to do that, what is the ultimate? If you are not changing that speed and reducing the speed or reversing the whole process, bringing the wealth to the people. 99.9% of the people have less than 1% of the wealth of the world. And the remaining less than 1% of the people owning more than 99% of the wealth. It's getting worse. I keep telling that this is a ticking time bomb. Politically, socially, economically, it will explode anytime. But
in what way will it explode?
One way, if you are depriving all the people in the world from the wealth, all the wealth is in the hands of a handful of people, there definitely will be a lot of anger because of that. And that anger will be expressed in politics and society and so on and so
Violence.
forth. You cannot do that. If you have a whole mushroom of wealth, huge mushroom of wealth, expanding mushroom of wealth, owned by fewer and fewer people. It's a dozen people or 2 dozen people or something like that. And the stem of the mushroom is getting thinner and thinner, which represents the wealth of the 99.9% of the people. And you think people would just say it's okay, that's how it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be that way. System makes it happen. It's not because they are super smart people and we are less than smart people. Simply system works for the people who already have lots of wealth. They get more wealth. So that's a danger for the system itself. Unless we correct the system, amend the system, or find a new system, we cannot get out of it.
At the same time, and I know you were a big proponent of the Millennium Development Goals from the United Nations and also the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
The Millennium Development Goals were described as the most successful anti-poverty movement in history. And that happened. It reduced extreme poverty by almost half. That happened under the capitalist system. Is there a contradiction there?
No, there's no contradiction, because marginally people who are extremely poor, they're slightly better off. They're getting out of the poverty line. But the guy who is on the top, he's way ahead in the sky. So, and all the wealth that the bottom people, or even 99% of the people, not just bottom people,
Right.
was supposed to have access to, now in the hands of a handful of people. And it looks like, okay, if I'm okay with my life, I'm out of poverty. The problem is, if you have control over all the wealth, you have control over everything else. You have control over politics, you control over media, you control over everything. So that's something you don't have to wait for long to find out, that whatever you do, it doesn't mean anything to anybody, because the guy who has all the money, all the wealth, controls everything.
So do you think that some of the political discontent that we're seeing in North America, in the United States, in parts of Europe, in relatively wealthy countries, is as a result of that?
That's what I tried to explain.
Yeah.
And probably this is something similar to what I am saying,
Yeah.
Exploding in political terms. I said the people are unhappy at the bottom. In UK, for example, they are trying to find what's the solution, why is happening. The politicians telling them, well, it's because East Europeans are coming to you in the country, they're taking your job, that's why you're not getting all the job that you wanted to, get better job, better salary, and so on, because all the people are coming for all around you. So we'll protect you from them. How? Get out of European Union. So they found an easy solution for that by getting out of the European Union. And that's why the Brexit came. It's a Brexit was not a solution. Simply is misinterpretation of the problem to get the political advantage of it. Similar thing happened in North America, in USA, telling that we'll build a wall, we'll get all the visas and everything. We'll make restrictions. We'll not let the immigrants come, and we'll restrict the foreign aid and everything, foreign trade and everything, so that our jobs don't go away. So what are you doing? You're isolating yourself. You become smaller and smaller island by yourself. That's not the direction that the world is supposed to be. So you're going against the direction of what you are, just to take political advantage of the frustration of the people. This is not a solution. Solution is how to undo the system which is concentrating all the wealth, so that if those wealth is distributed for everybody, we will not have any problem with anybody coming to us.
So you've offered some solutions
Yes,
in this most recent book. Tell me what your economic system looks like.
All I'm saying that where is the reason why all the wealth concentration is taking place within the system, the capitalist system? One problem that I point out is because misinterpretation of a human being in the economic theory itself. Economic theory assumes that human beings are driven by self-interest, meaning selfishness. So selfishness is the key thing in human being. If you are driven by that, you perform with that, and you continue to perform that way.
It's the profit motive.
It's a profit motive. Profit motive, the more profit you make, more successful you are, more successful the economy is. I said that's a misinterpretation of human being. Human beings are not selfish people. Human beings are selfish and selfless at the same time. But the selflessness was never allowed in the economic theory. If you want to be selfless, you become a philanthropist. You don't play in the economic world. You step out of the economic world. I said no. As a human being, I want to play in the economic world with both my capabilities as a selfish person, as a selfless person. As a selfish person, I create business to make money, maximization profit. As a selfless person, I create business to solve problems without any intention of making money myself. And we created a lot of those businesses in Bangladesh. Now it's being created in other countries. We call them social business, non-dividend company to solve human problems. And now it's working, it's getting bigger and bigger. So I said, this is an option. You just tell people you have options. You're not just want to make money all the time. Because by putting that selfishness into the center stage of a human being, you created a world of greed. Everything is driven by greed. Also, as if all people are fitted with glasses with dollar signs. You see only dollar, nothing else. I said, no, world is more than the dollar sign. You take off the dollar sign glasses, you put on the social glasses, you'll see many options for you. You can pursue that. All I'm saying that give them the options. Let human beings pursue whatever they want. And then we have the social business. Once you create social business doesn't contribute to the wealth concentration, because wealth doesn't come to me, because by my decision is all in this business, the profit is plowed back into the business itself. So the concentration of wealth has a slower impact in the speed of growing bigger and bigger.
Give me your favorite example of a social business.
There are many examples. Just to take one, in Bangladesh, we see villages without electricity and so on. The only thing you have is a kerosene lamp. People have no access to internet because there's no electricity and so on. So what I did, I created a social business to bring solar energy, solar home system in the villages of Bangladesh. In the beginning, everybody said, no, it won't work. Bangladesh is not capable of spending money into doing that kind of thing. People are poor to do that. I said, well, I'll try. So we created some 23 years back a company called Grameen Solar Energy, or Grameen Shakti, and started selling solar energy, solar home system. And we tell the people that whatever money you spend on kerosene every month, you give the money to us, we give you the solar home system. So you're not spending anything more for us. And you do it for over 3 years, then I'm paid all the money that I needed to get. I got it.
That pays for the cost of the solar panel or whatever it is.
Everything else.
Yes.
And then it's all free. You don't have to pay me. You don't have to pay anybody anything. You don't have to buy kerosene or anything. So people like that idea. So it grew. Now we have over 2 million homes with solar home system. And in the meantime, other organizations got very excited about it. They want to follow the same thing. So in total, there are more than 4 million homes with solar home system in Bangladesh. We created this not to make money. We created to solve the problem of the people and remove the fossil fuel-driven lighting to green energy lighting with the solar energy. And Bangladesh has lots of sun, so we had no problem with that. And now we are using solar energy for irrigation and other purposes also. So this is a social business. This is the only thing we removed from our mind to make personally benefiting from the business we do.
But it needs that initial seed from the more traditional economic model, right? It takes a little bit of money to get those things started.
Oh, it's a business.
Yeah.
Business is investment. So I'm not saying that there's no investment.
Right.
The more you do, the more you need to invest more money to continue. But you do it because you get the money back. I could have done it as a charity. As a charity, I would given a few homes with solar home energy and so on and stop there. Because no charity organization will keep me dishing out all the money to give solar energy for every home. And it's not realistic to do that. So what I did into the business, sell the product. And since I had to find a way how to make it acceptable to people, I came with the idea that whatever money you spend on the kerosene, you give it to us and you get the solar home system. That's it. And in the process, people loved it. Now they're familiar with the green energy. They're connected with the internet. They're connected with the telephone system, everything else.
You say that your real hope lies with the next generation, the generation that is coming of age now, and that they are, you point out that they are disillusioned in many instances by capitalism and the traditional economic model. There's also research that shows that they are disillusioned as well with democracy, and polling suggests that they even don't value civil rights the same way their parents' generation does. In that framework, how concerned are you that they may in fact not be able to, because the kinds of things you're talking about, that sort of selflessness, to me seems to go hand in hand with democratic values and values around civil and human rights as well.
Yeah, well, a very simple reason that I feel that young people are looking for things which doesn't exist now. That's why they are frustrated. They see they're not going to the direction that their life would be different, the world would be different. They don't like the wealth concentration to begin with. If they hear about it, they say, what kind of world you created for us? We are the victims of this wealth concentration. They don't like the fact that there's so much poverty and other things and tensions and hostility among people. So they are looking for new things. These are the completely different kind of generation. For me, I describe them by saying they're the most powerful generation in human history. Because no other generation ever had so much technology in their hand by the time they are 5-year-old. Nobody had that. They, by 6-year-old, they are already communicating with each other. And beyond that, they are globally interconnected. They are not isolated persons anymore. So they see all the possibilities, but look at the world that exists, it doesn't match with the expectations that they have. So I'm saying that you can create your own world. So that's the hope, that you don't expect your older generation will deliver it to you and you inherit it. You're not inheriting anything. You create it yourself. I said, you have Aladdin's lamp in your hand. All you have to do is to touch the lamp and the genie will come out. And feel that you have that capacity, have that creative power, have that power to change the world in yourself. So your genie is, you are the genie yourself. So don't wait for others to do it yourself.
So it's not about a job, as you say, it's about, we're all entrepreneurs in some fashion.
Yes, I give them the example. Look, old-fashioned economics told us that everybody has to find a job. And a job is the ultimate of life. You finish your school, you get a job, your life is done. The rest of it is just continue with the job and retire someday. I said, that's the most unexciting thing for young people, because they are creative people, they're full of energy, full of creative power. That limits their creativity. Job is kind of a take away your creative power. You fit into a little slot. You are a giant of a human being, but then you squeeze yourself to fit into a little slot. That doesn't feel very comfortable to them. So I said, don't fit into that. This is a misinterpretation of human being, that they have to work for somebody else, another human being. I said, this is the wrong idea. The real idea is all human beings are born as an entrepreneur. That's our history. Throughout the history, we were entrepreneurs, we were go-getters, we were problem solvers. We are never working for anybody else. So now the theory says we have to work. So let's fix the theory. You don't have to change because theory says something. You do whatever you feel like. So feel like you are an entrepreneur, work like an entrepreneur, use your full creative power to change the world. And I keep telling them, look, you cannot create the world that you want with the old roads that your previous generations built. Old roads will take you to the old destination. If you want to create this new world, you have to build new roads. And you have the capability to build that new roads. And you'll do it faster and more efficient way. Don't worry about the old roads. Just be busy with the building of the new roads so that you can create the world that you want, not the world that you have inherited from the past.
You also say in here that we shouldn't think about retirement. And that you
Yes,
don't,
it did.
and that you don't even like the word. When I left my last job, I enjoyed the fact that in Spanish, the word for retirement is jubilado.
What does it mean?
Happiness, right?
Yes.
Jubilado, it's like jubilation.
Okay, good.
So when you say we shouldn't think about that, you spoke about young people. Talk about people who are closer in age to you and me.
Sure, yeah. I'm talking about the retirement because I always felt very uncomfortable with the word retirement. I said, how can human being have a specific date after which he or she feels that I'm no use for anybody anymore? Because the company said, you're no useful to us, please leave us. Here's a good gift for your pension and all that. Be on your own. I said, that's not what human beings are. The word retirement, as if you have been mothballed. You are no longer an active person. I say human beings are always active. Human beings are always creative. And they remain active until the last breath. That capacity is made us forgotten by the word retirement, that you are useful, you are creative, you do this thing. I said I would replace this retirement by saying phase one of my life, first phase of my life, where I work hard, I go to school, I get all my preparations and so on for adulthood, I get married, get children, get job, whatever you do, that's a thing you do. Then I move into the second phase. I have no obligation to anybody. I'm free. I call this second phase of my life as the freedom phase of my life. You call it jubilation? Yes, it is. It's a freedom, jubilation. I'm only too responsible to myself. I want to do things which I never did before. I dreamt about it, but never did it. Now I'm free. I don't have to look at anybody else looking at me to doing, performing, not performing. I'm not responsible to anybody. I'm responsible to myself. I want to contribute to creating a world that I want. And always I wanted to do that, I need to do that. And that retirement age, that they fix it at a particular age, I said that's unnecessary. I, as a human being, I decide when I enter my phase of two, freedom phase. It's my decision. I want to be free at such and such date, and I'm free. I prepare for that freedom phase, and I do exactly what I want to do.
I want to ask you a little bit about Bangladesh itself, your home country. As you point out, it's the most populous nation on earth. It's also among the very poorest, and yet its economy is robust. The growth is something like 7%. How would you describe the situation in Bangladesh now?
Well, economically it's doing good. More than that, the growth rate doesn't represent the totality of the quality of life of the people. But Bangladesh is very interesting in that sense. In the last 20, 30 years, it has completely changed socially. For example, women empowerment has been done in a massive way. They're going from the village after village. Women have transformed themselves to an old way of living, to a new way of living, and so on. More freedom, more status in the family, and so on, more expressions for them. So that's a women transformation is a completely revolutionized the whole country. And healthcare. Among the SAARC countries, the countries in the region, 8 countries in the SAARC, we were at the bottom level in the healthcare system, healthcare index. Today, after 30 years, now we are at the top of the 8 countries in healthcare, ahead of India, ahead of any other countries in there. So something happened with the maternal mortality, infant mortality, and longevity has increased. Our 30 years back, our longevity is a very strange situation. Men lived longer than women, which is very strange. Everywhere women live longer than women. Now we came back to that. Women live longer, and we moved from 55 years to 67 years now in the last few years. So birth rate has gone down. We are approaching stable growth rate and so on and so forth, near approaching about replacement growth rate. So this is amazing factors that happen in the Bangladeshi situation. In terms of social indicators, Bangladesh has done very well. In terms of sanitation, Bangladesh almost has done sanitation in all the villages of Bangladesh with toilets and so on and so forth. So I would say it's a big success from Bangladesh in social way and economic way, both ways.
I want to ask you about a Canadian example, because when I was reading your book, one of the things that this government has promised to do in Canada is to provide good drinking water to many of the First Nations reserves, most of which are in remote locations. It's a hugely expensive proposition, but obviously critically important to have water that you can bathe your children in and that you can drink. Where would be the opportunity for social business or social enterprise in providing clean drinking water in that situation, do you think?
You already defined the problem for a social business. Social business starts with the problem. You define the problem. That this is my problem, how do we deliver it? So now I have to come back and design a business. How do we bring it to all those places? We do it in Bangladesh. Water is a big problem in Bangladesh. There's plenty of water in Bangladesh. Most often you are reporting our flood in your media because too much water. But our problem is drinking water. We have too much water but no drinking water. So we have to work on the drinking water spot. And so we create social business to do that. We have joint ventures with big water companies and so on, how to bring water in the villages and so on. We have a little water treatment plant as a social business and have running water, the pipelines in the village. And we put the tap point in the village. People can come bring their jar and fill it up and pay a tiny little money for that jar of water so that this clean water compared to the arsenic contaminated water in the village, which is cause of lots of diseases and is poison that people are drinking, particularly children are drinking. So replacing it with the clean water. Make it so cheap so that they can afford it. And give it a kind of a cross-subsidization. You sell it at a higher price for the rich families and lower price for the poor families, and make them bring the jar so that you don't have to spend money to container. You bring your jar, we fill it up for you. I am not delivering it to your home. You come pick it up. So you always picked up water anyway. Right. Today you are doing it in a nearby. It's not long distance. There we have a lot of tap points. You come and do that. For rich people, we deliver it to your home, but you pay higher price. So we just connect you to your home point and you do it in your home. You get your water. So you pay because you afford it. And we charge you and we make money so that we can make the cheaper.
It requires initiative, though, on the part of government, though, doesn't it? In order to make social enterprise work in terms of regulation or seeing the possibility of doing that. Do you see governments willing to make those regulatory changes? Because they're the ones that are basically, in effect, along with the elites controlling the purse strings and the rules that sort of govern the economies.
Government's job is to make sure it happens. So regulation comes when you see it happens in a haphazard way. So you need regulation. So if it doesn't happen, your regulation is useless. So what do you do with regulation if nobody's producing water, delivering water? If government itself is delivering water, you don't need regulation because you are the one who's delivering water. And most often it's assumed that government should deliver the water. Okay, let's think that the government is supposed to. If government is not doing, should the citizens just sit there with folded hands, not doing anything? I said, no, citizens can move forward. They can find out their ways of doing, they create social business that I'm talking about, or they can come with charity programs. Instead of charity program, I prefer the social business program because charity program is one way you give things free, but your money goes out, it doesn't come back. So you have only one-time use of your money. If you do it in a social business way, the money goes out, delivers the product, and money comes back. So you can continue to do it without waiting for somebody else to give you the money. So that's what the business part of it. And I create that business to make it happen. And if I'm doing something wrong in the eyes of the government, then only government says, no, you shouldn't do it this way, you better do it this way. I would be very happy to do that. Anybody would be happy to do that. My purpose is not to fatten myself with profit. My purpose is to make sure that they get clean water. And to people who had never had access to water, get clean water for them, safe water for their children and so on. So it can be done like we do in Bangladesh. India is doing the same thing, creating social business to bring water in the villages of in India and so on. Canada can do the same thing. And the important thing about social business, it doesn't have to be a mega project. It could be just for one little part of a village that I serve 50 families in this village. And I'm self-contained. I cover all my costs, and they are happy. They get the water. And so now I want to reach out to another 50 families or another 100 families. All I have to do is to repeat this. So each one is an independent unit. The more you want, the more you can go. What will be the role of the government? Open up the resources so that I can borrow money from the institutions, or you have the money because I can invest it, I can do it and pay you back, get the money out so that I can continue with this process. That's the role government has to play. Encourage, they become the cheerleader to begin with, that yes, you do that, citizens can become very creative and active. Once citizens get into the business and doing anything, their enormous creative power get into the action. Government will never have that creative power because it only works with a system, with a bureaucracy that have, and by nature bureaucracy is not creative. Bureaucracy can only repetitive. So if you want a creative power inside of it, you have to get the citizens' involvement. And citizens can come and do it as a social business. Why don't we do it as a conventional business? Because conventional business comes with a dollar sign. They forget the people, forget the other need. They will sell you water, promise you many things, and ultimately you cannot reach out to people who cannot afford it. So social business idea is to make it affordable, reach out to the least possible person, make it successful. That's the creative power that you bring.
It's been more than a decade since the Grameen Bank and you were awarded the Nobel Prize. And you've been talking about these kinds of ideas for much longer than that. You describe yourself as a pragmatist and maybe even an optimist. Some people would say you're a dreamer. Are you?
I would say some combination of all of that. A dreamer is a good word because I say you need imagination. If you do not imagine, you cannot do anything. So you have to be imaginative. You have to have lots of imagination. The dreamer word, people kind of say it in a way it's not practical because it's a passive. When you imagine in a passive way, meaning that I'm not active, but I hope this kind of thing will happen. I lie down and dream. I have beautiful houses, beautiful this and so on. I never had that. I never tried it. That's an inactive way, passive way. I said imagination has to be active imagination. I imagine and I pursue. That's not a dream. That's a plan. But you need an imagination, a wild imagination. Unless you have, imagination doesn't cost you anything. So why should you limit yourself by making a small imagination? Make it a big imagination. Then your activity becomes big and you want to make it happen. That's what the science fiction does. Science fiction is always dreaming about doing things which is unbelievable that will happen. But the technology and science follows that path. When we dreamed about going to the moon, it was an imagination. But we wrote science fictions, make science movies, going to the moon, and finally we made it. Now we talk about going to the Mars, going to another system, solar system, and so on.
Creating equality.
And another thing happened. This is creating equality. This is a dream, but it can happen because we dream about it. That's why while we read the social science fiction, we are not writing social fiction. I very much miss the social fiction. I said, I wish there is a series of social fiction in the movies and the televisions and so on. People imagine that this is the kind of society we can build. If we have a series of social fictions in our televisions and our movies, we'll make it happen because it will excite ourselves. Yeah, why don't you do that? Looks good. So that's the value of the dreaming, value of the imagination. So yes, I'm a dreamer in that sense that we have to have that. And that's what drives all these young people, that let's make it happen. And once people make a decision to make it happen, it happens.
I so much enjoy speaking with you and your determination and wild imagination.
Thank you. Thank you very much.